One of the most infamous prisons in history was the Rock, or Alcatraz. It was found on Alcatraz Island, 1.25 miles off the coast of San Francisco. Some of the most notorious American prisoners found themselves held on the Rock and the island, and it was thought that Alcatraz was impossible to escape from, and there were a number of escape attempts. Life was very tough in the prison, and there was a very strict set of rules for the prisoners to keep to. They were expected to keep good order, and prisoners could be subjected to disciplinary action, which led to them being sent to solitary confinement. This was very feared, and part of the solitary confinement area became known as the Hole, and the prisoners here were allowed one 10-minute shower and 1 hour of exercise in the yard a week. They also may have not received as much food as they should have. However, on the 2nd of May 1946, following a failed escape attempt from Alcatraz by armed convicts, there was a bit of an uprising in the prison, and because of this, there were a number of deaths and also injuries. But 2 men for their actions would then be executed. Join us today as we look at the executions of the Battle of Alcatraz, and as always, to support our channel, please make sure to click subscribe down below. Alcatraz, as mentioned, had a reputation for being impossible to escape from, and it was believed that no one could survive the swim across the water. But there had been a number of high-profile prisoners who had tried to escape, but one escape attempt was planned by Bernard Coy. There were 3 other convicts involved in the plan: Marvin Hubbard, Clarence Carnes, and Joseph Kretzer. 2 other men, Sam Shockley and Miran Thompson, later joined the escape attempt following the outbreak of it. Bernard Coy, the leader, was a man who had been sentenced to 25 years imprisonment for bank robbery. Joe Kretzer was a gangster imprisoned for 25 years for murder, and for these 2 men there was little chance of them getting out of the prison system. Kretzer and Shockley had a past with trying to escape. But the plan to escape noticed that there were some security flaws in Alcatraz. In particular, there was a gun gallery at the west end of the cell house, which was protected by bars but not barriers. Also, the officers had set routines, and the men could then guess and predict when the gun gallery would be left unattended. On the 2nd of May 1946, the prisoners were outside the workshops, but Coy was in the main cell house sweeping the floor in C block, and a kitchen orderly and officer then let him in. Coy then attacked this officer and overpowered him, and then Joe Kretzer and Clarence Carnes were led out of their cells. The cell house had a gun gallery that was patrolled by an armed officer, but the officer who was attacked was done so when the armed officer was not there. They made their way up onto the gun gallery and managed to split the bars, keeping the prisoners out. They then managed to get through the gap onto it. The armed officer, when he returned, was overpowered, and Coy had on him the Springfield rifle, and he also gave a pistol, club weapons and gas grenades to the other men. Coy then entered D block, and he used the rifle to threaten an officer to open the doors to the cell house and to let the other prisoners in. They then released other convicts, including Sam Shockley and Miran Thompson. The pair then joined the revolt and escape attempt, and the escapees needed the key to the yard door to try and get out. They planned to then go to the dock and to take the prison's boat, which had been docked between 2:10 p.m. and 2:30 every day. But one officer managed to hold on to the key, but they eventually found this by searching hostage officers, and the escape attempt would not be successful. The yard door did not open, and the lock had jammed, meaning it was doomed, and the prisoners then made the decision to try and shoot their way out. At 2:25 p.m, Coy with his rifle fired at officers in the watchtowers, and he wounded one, and one warden with a club was then shot by Coy, but the alarm had been raised. Shockley and Thompson told Kretzer to kill hostages, and Kretzer wounded 5 of them, and 3 were injured very seriously, with one later dying from his wounds. Carnes along with Shockley and Thompson went back to their cells, and Coy and Kretzer made the decision to not give in and to go out in a blaze of glory alongside Hubbard. They had gone too far, and they decided to fight out. At 6 p.m, armed officers entered the gun cage, and they were then shot at by the escapees, and one was killed by friendly fire, and 4 more were wounded. Electricity was cut, and 2 platoons of Marines were sent to the island to help deal with the situation. The convicts were on top of a cell block, but at 8 p.m, unarmed officers entered, and they found the hostages, and officers then launched a barrage of fire and threw grenades at the escapees in D block. The escapees were stuck. They were then confined to the main cell house, but the convicts were then driven into a corner. Holes in the prison roof were drilled and grenades were dropped to force the prisoners into a utility corridor. The next day, on the 3rd of May, the escapees tried to negotiate, but the guards would only accept their complete surrender, but Joe Kretzer said he would not be taken alive. Constant fire that evening was shot at their position in the utility corridor, and when the guards entered the corridor in the morning of the 4th of May, the bodies of Kretzer, Coy, and Hubbard were found. This incident then became known as the Battle of Alcatraz, but then proceedings were brought against specifically Sam Shockley and Miran Thompson regarding their involvement in the battle. The pair were tried with participation in an escape attempt and in the killing and injuring of the guards. It was claimed that Shockley did not have a weapon, but he did attack a guard, but other witnesses testified that Shockley was seen running up and down the corridors and that he was armed with a wrench in this, and that he wore an officer's jacket. Other men testified that Shockley was inside of D Block when the shooting began, and some claimed that he was not part of the escape plan, but he instead tagged along. He was not a key figure in the escape attempt, but some claimed that he may have been mentally affected by his imprisonment inside of Alcatraz, and Shockley did have little recall of the events of the Battle of Alcatraz. Miran Thompson was also tried in the same manner, and because of their actions, along with Clarence Carnes, they were all found guilty of murder in the 1st degree at their trial in the Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. Carnes was spared the death penalty, as he was claimed to have been taken hostage himself, that he did not follow the instructions to kill other guards when he was directed to do so. But Sam Shockley and Miran Thompson were sentenced to death. They were taken to San Quentin Prison, and they were placed on death row for a while. Pleas for clemency were lodged to try and get them off their death sentence, however these were rejected. On the 3rd of December 1948, Shockley and Thompson were led into the execution chamber in San Quentin for their deaths. They were to be executed by gas, and the pair were then executed simultaneously inside the chamber. They were sat in the chamber before the gas and pellets were dropped in, which reacted with acid, and the gas then rose inside the chamber. Within minutes, the pair had been executed for their involvement in the Battle of Alcatraz. As a result of the Battle of Alcatraz, 2 Federal Bureau of Prisons officers were killed, and the 3 men who attempted to escape, Bernard Coy, Joe Kretzer, and Marvin Hubbard, were killed. But also Sam Shockley and Miran Thompson were executed inside the gas chamber of San Quentin. In the years after the battle, there was a lot of work done to try and improve the conditions of Alcatraz, and the inmates were given more privileges, and they were given better treatment. They were even allowed to talk to other inmates quietly, but it was found in 1959 that the cost of holding a prisoner of Alcatraz was 3 times that when compared to other prisons. But the prison was also deteriorating, and it would cost $5 million to fix the problems. This led to Alcatraz, the Rock, being closed on the 21st of March 1963. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.